Hey everybody, I'm Mike Kazimer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new 2021 Trek Slash. Now it's been a few years since this bike received an update. Back when it came out, well at least when the last version came out in 2017, it was the slackest 29er on the market at the time with a 65-degree head angle. If you've been following along, you know the geometry's progressed pretty rapidly in the years since, so time for this thing to get an update. That means it got longer, lower, slacker. It also received a few cool new frame features. We're looking at 160 millimeters of rear travel with a 170 millimeter fork. Let's start with the geometry. Looking at the reach numbers, got about 20 to 30 millimeters longer per size. So size large behind me, that measures at 486 millimeters, and that's comparable to say a Norco Sight, which is 485 millimeters, or an S4 Specialized Enduro, which is 487 millimeters. So that number is pretty in line with what we're starting to see as a modern large. Head angle is sitting at 64.1 degrees, and that's in the low setting. If you wanted to have a steeper head angle for some reason, you could bump that up to 64.6 degrees. I've got a feeling most riders will just leave it in low and call it good. Chain stay length is the same for all sizes, and that's 437 millimeters. So head angle got slacker, and the C-tube angle got steeper. Previous version was 73.6 degrees. This new one, 75.6 degrees. So pretty significant change, although it's still not as steep as we're starting to see. There's a lot of companies out there that are putting bikes out with seat angles at 77, 78 degree realm. This one's still on the slacker side, but it is an improvement over the previous version. Let's go over the frame features. I'd say probably the coolest feature on this bike is the fact that it has internal down tube storage now. Something we saw on the Fuel EX, now it's carried over to this bike. And it's not just on the carbon models, it's also available on the aluminum models as well. So pretty nice, no matter which level of bike you get, you can store your tube, tools, some snacks in that down tube tucked away. Makes it easier to head out without a backpack. Trek also went with a threaded bottom bracket, so I can hear all the anti-press fit fans cheering from here. As far as the frame itself goes, it's pretty impressively light. We're talking 2,450 grams, and that's a number you normally associate with more of a trail-oriented bike rather than something that's built to be an enduro race bike. Trek realized that not everybody wants to pedal around a big heavy sled, even if they're going to access some rowdy terrain, so they focused on the lightweight with this. They use that AVP suspension design, basically a single pivot layout. It means they don't have as many extra links, and it's easier to get this frame pretty light. To protect the frame, we've got generous down tube protection on this. Covers the whole down tube, so if you're shuttling, tossing it in the back of a pickup truck, it's got some protection there. It also has new chainstay protection, keep chain slap to a minimum. This bike has a 34.9 millimeter diameter seat tube. We're starting to see that kind of catch on. One feature that we need to talk about is that knock block technology. That's a little stop in the head tube that prevents your bars from turning too far, and so that your fork or your shifters and brake levers don't hit the frame, potentially cause damage. But it's been a polarizing topic in the past simply because the range of motion wasn't that far. Some riders in super tight turns didn't like that they would reach the end of the amount that they could turn the bars. This new one, you've got about 20 degrees more motion in either direction, so it feels a lot more natural. If you're riding some super steep European switchbacks, you shouldn't have any trouble. And if you really don't like it, you can take it off. The old one had the straight down tube. Now the down tube has a little curve in it, so you can take that off. You can run a normal stem, don't need the knock block, so it just opens up some more options. And anybody that didn't like the knock block in the past, one less thing to complain about. Now let's take a moment to talk about the shock on this bike. This has the Super Deluxe through shaft, so it's developed specifically for Trek in conjunction with RockShox, and it's got some features that actually carry over from the Deluxe model shock. So if you look closely, it has a low-speed compression knob that can be adjusted to 3 positions, so you can have it kind of full open for your full downhill mode, middle, which is going to be probably where most riders keep it most of the time, and then you can firm it up. Say you're hitting a jump line, something with a little bit more rolly terrain that you want some more support. It also has a numbered rebound dial, which if you've ever tried to figure out how many clicks of rebound you need, you'll know you have to close it off all the way, count the clicks from full close. Well, this one, it's numbered, so you could look in the user guide and just say 4 clicks of rebound, and just turn it to number 4. You're not locked into this shock either. This particular one is proprietary to Trek, but you could also run, say, a Float X2, Float DPX2. The one shock that won't fit is the traditional RockShox Super Deluxe. There's a total of 7 models in the Slash lineup, 2 aluminum versions, 5 carbon versions. There's also the option of going with Trek's Project One build kit option. That allows you to pick the paint colors, pick some of the parts, customize it. If you want some fancy sparkles, want your name on the top tube, they can do that for you. There's an additional upcharge for that. The model sitting behind me, that's the Slash 9.9 X01 edition. It retails for $8,000 US. Parts kit highlights include that RockShox Zeb Ultimate fork, got an X01 12-speed drivetrain, SRAM Code RSC brakes, Bond Tracker tires, and a Bond Tracker dropper post. If you wanted to buy the frame only, that's going to set you back $4,000 US. You can also buy the aluminum frame only, and that goes for $2,499 US. And the total weight for this bike, we didn't really mention that, that's 32.3 pounds as it sits without any tools or anything stashed in that down tube. That's enough talk about the details. Let's get into how this bike actually rides. I have a handful of rides in so far, so this isn't a long-term review, but just initial testing the waters, figuring out what this bike is all about. As far as climbing goes, I will say that slacker seat tube angle, it is noticeable compared to some of its contemporaries. You do feel a little more stretched out when you're climbing, a little bit longer. But the good news is it does pedal well, so you don't have to flip that climb switch. It's relatively light too for a bike of this type. 160 mil bike that weighs in at 32 pounds. It's pretty reasonable. So getting to the top of the hill, it's not too bad, but if you are looking for a bike that's really, super upright pedaling position, easy to whip around corners, it's probably not this one. The good news is it's a different story on the descents. Very impressed so far with the Slash's downhill prowess. It's got a nice, just ground hugging feel. The tune of that Super Deluxe shock just feels excellent so far. That little 3-position compression knob, it makes a noticeable difference. You can really fine tune it to the trails you're riding. Easy to imagine racing this bike. We'll get some time lapse going eventually, do some head-to-head comparisons, but do think this could make a very good race bike, or if you just want to be the fastest in your neighborhood. We'll be doing a more comprehensive, in-depth review of this bike a little further down the road, but in the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can stay up to date on all the latest mountain bike news and reviews. Thanks for watching.